Welcome back. I'm Andrew, your crypto guy on the internet. And we got the CPI data report in, the inflation report. Now, the market was expecting it to be around 8.2% or better, i.e. lower. The previous month was 8.3%, but it was already improving a little bit, down from 8.5, which is still really high numbers, but we're seeing improvement. So the overall narrative for the past month from the Biden administration and mainstream news was that inflation was high, but it had peaked and we're seeing improvement because of the Federal Reserve's efforts. Well, the actual CPI data report came out and it was 8.6. So inflation was in effect getting worse, rapidly worse. So Biden, before this report, goes on Jimmy Kimmel, his first real main appearance in about 4 months. Joe Biden comes out, says we're having the strongest economic recovery in history, and that we're doing the best in the world despite these big problems. But then the reality came out the next day, and not only is it not the best recovery ever, it's the worst recovery ever. It's the worst in 40 years, arguably the worst since we've recorded these things. And so that was not a good look for Biden because numbers don't lie. And so Joe had to get ahead of this. He comes out and gives a 20-minute speech. And in terms of Joe Biden's speeches, this was one of his better ones. He spoke for 20 minutes. He didn't forget where he was. He fumbled a few times, but everybody does. He's old. That's okay. But he realized that inflation was nasty, and he better say something because his polling, his approval rating, is now lower than Trump's was at Trump's lowest point. Bad. So Biden comes out, and he says a few things. I wrote some highlights down here. First, he addresses January 6th, which we're having a primetime TV special across liberal news showing a hearing on January 6th. But ironically, we're only hearing one side of the argument. They're not covering a lot of details that are rather important, one being that Trump actually requested additional security before the January 6th riot and was refused. And then the insurrectionists were let into the building willingly with no fighting. There was no security. But that's okay. We're not even going to talk about that. January 6th was a big problem, regardless of where you fall, and the right condemned it. But the right also had some things to say beyond just this is an attack on our democracy, because they understood the frustration that was behind that, just like the left understood the frustration of the BLM riots that happened for a year before the January 6th insurrection. Okay? But we're not going to get into that any further. That's fine. So Biden covers January 6th, gets everybody scared because it's an attack on our democracy and the Nazis and the Republicans are taking over. Sure, okay. So then he addresses inflation because Biden's advisors are like, Joey, inflation is a big problem for people. They can't afford to eat or get gas or anything anymore. They can't afford rent. This is bad. You better address inflation. So he goes, okay. First, it's Putin's fault. Putin's fault, Putin price hike. But we already know that's not true because prices started jumping as soon as Biden took office and started implementing restrictive oil and drilling policies. So it's been going up the whole time. Before Putin showed up. A year before Putin showed up, prices were increasing. So the Putin price hike attempt came and went and failed. Then he blames Republicans. Says the Republican Party is different now, and that they don't follow the rules, and they're evil, and they're in the way of all my efforts. Even though Joe Biden and the Democratic Party currently owns the House and the Senate and arguably the Supreme Court, they still can't seem to solve these problems. And then he blames shipping companies. He says the shipping companies coming out of East Asia, primarily China, are charging way too much. And it's their fault. And we need to force them to lower their prices. Okay, a couple things. First, Joe Biden has no power over foreign shipping companies. There's nothing he can do other than just threaten them. But they're going to go, we've dramatically increased our prices here, especially shipping out of China. A, because we can, and B, because we have to. Because of the lockdowns here, the supply chain issues, we're all backed up. There's no labor. Everything's a mess here. So we have to charge really high prices to stay afloat. Okay? And then he goes, well, they're making way too many profits. And we need to make sure they stop making record profits. They're price gouging us. And there's an argument for, yeah, that's true. And they are and they can, because there's nothing Biden can do, right? So what can you do? Increase the supply of oil. Now, why is the United States number one? Why has the United States been number one for so long? Because we are a leading producer of traditional fuels like oil, natural gas, and coal. And Biden's administration is giving that up for a green transition into electric cars, solar panels, and wind turbines. So even if all of those things actually worked, which they provably don't, but let's say even that they do, we don't produce any of that stuff here. So for electric cars, you need lithium, cobalt, graphite. That all comes from China. We don't make any of that here, unlike oil and natural gas and coal. China makes all that stuff. Okay, solar panels. China makes those, not us. So in effect, you're handing over the reins of power and leadership to China by changing the way the world uses energy. Okay? And when you do that, you are now victim or subject to the whims of China and other countries. Any country that actually has the source of energy can charge what they want, and there's nothing you can do. Unless you start another war under false pretense, like, oh, we're going to liberate you with democracy, Ghana, because you have all these lithium mines, but really we're going to say because there's a dictator there or something. Anyway, I digress. And so we have all these problems, and the obvious solution is to just increase supply, right? There are two ways to combat inflation. You either increase supply or you lower demand. And since Biden's administration is refusing to increase supply, we have to lower demand. And the way you lower demand is things are just too expensive for people to buy, so they stop buying things. Okay? Now, what happens when you stop buying things? Those businesses go under. And where do you work? At one of those businesses. So people lose their job, they can't afford things, and then who's going to save them? The government? With an inflationary policy? So it creates a doom spiral, okay? The other option that the left has considered is forcibly increasing wages so they can afford to buy these more expensive things. So wages are up 5%, but inflation is up 8.6%. So wages are not keeping up with inflation. So if you force businesses to pay their people more when they're already underwater, they're already in debt, you force them to pay their people more. So now the employees that still have a job, because there's going to be mass layoffs because the businesses cannot afford to increase wages, especially right now, let's say they do. And so people have money to buy these hyperinflated prices of things. Well, that increases the prices even more because the supply is still too low. So that creates a wage price spiral. So you have more money, but things keep costing more. And so the price keeps going up and up and up, and the supply is still too low. So it's really better and healthier in every possible scenario to increase supply rather than try to forcibly lower demand. Okay? Lowering demand is what punishes the middle class and the lower class. The mega wealthy don't really care about inflation to a certain extent. Like, they're pretty much fine. But for you and me, we have a budget every month. We have to be responsible with our money. And if things price us out, we simply can't get that stuff anymore. Whether it's meat or fuel or schooling or a house or anything that you would normally be able to buy, you can't anymore. And that's by force. So what is Biden's solution? What did he come forward with? It wasn't increasing supply. It wasn't drilling for more oil. It was lowering the price of insulin. Okay, so if you lower the price of insulin, let's say you lower the price of healthcare across the board. That's good. That's a nice thing. Any other time. But right now, by comparison, it's kind of like my house is on fire and I'm trapped inside choking on smoke. And then Joe Biden walks up and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to paint your mailbox a pretty blue color." You're going, "A pretty mailbox? I'm dying. My house is on fire. I don't care about the mailbox right now, Joe. So yeah, I have cheaper insulin, theoretically, but I can't eat. So we have bigger problems right now." The main thing is that Joe is unable to solve this inflation problem because if he did, the only real solution is to increase the supply of oil and retain energy independence. We canceled the Keystone Pipeline on day one through executive order while allowing a Russian pipeline, which gave even more power to Russia and our enemies. So if he were to change course and start drilling for more oil, which would make Republicans happy, which would make moderate Democrats happy, which would make everyone who drives a car or eats food happy, instead of doing that, he has to try to grab something external or ancillary, like insulin prices. We can lower insulin maybe. Sure, but I'm going to need blood pressure medication at this point. I'm going to need food. My lights are about to shut off because the power of energy is too high. And that's all solvable, but he would have to change course dramatically. Even Bernie Sanders comes out and goes, the Democratic Party better change its tune right now or they're going to get annihilated in the midterms. And Bernie, you got to hand it to him, he's correct on that one. So what are we going to invest in if everything's tanking? Everything is tanking. Now, Bitcoin is right back at the bottom of the range it's been in, so that's kind of a good sign. But the pre-market is down another 3% for tomorrow. Look at that. It's going to keep bleeding, okay? It's still, there's no end to this. This is really bad, okay? And the Fed's going to have to increase rates 14th, 15th. We thought it was going to be half a point. It's probably going to be more than that now. They're going to have to do something more, man, or yell at Joe to change his tune or something, because you need the administration and the Fed to work together to solve the problem. It can't be the Fed trying to plug holes while the administration keeps poking in new holes. They both have to be plugging holes to stop the bleed, okay? But that's not happening right now. We need that to happen. So what are we going to invest in? It's not real estate anymore. That bubble's about to pop. It's already cooling off. That's the next thing that's going to dump, okay? Housing is rough, okay? I don't care how rich you are. Your property values are going to plummet here pretty soon, especially over the next 6 months to a year. Stocks are all a dead end. You could invest in U.S. Treasury bonds? Ugh. Maybe because the DXY will continue to increase, right? That's bullish as hell. So I guess the U.S. Treasury bonds are the way to go, but that's lame, bro. That sucks. But I guess that's really the only safe spot the way things are going. Otherwise, hey, Tesla just filed for a 3-to-1 stock split. So if you're looking at Tesla long term, remember this was at $1,400 at one point. Now it's half that, and then it's going to be divided by 3 after that. Elon is betting on a massive bull market in 2025. Really, halfway through 2024, we're going to start seeing some deep green. If we're still alive, then. Assuming we make it through the next year and a half, 2 years, that's when the next bull market should kick in. According to Elon, according to everybody who's very doom and gloom right now, a massive change in the White House and the resulting aggressive policy changes that will swing hard to the other side. It's going to be Republicans slashing taxes, slashing regulations, dumping money into crypto, drilling for oil, pushing natural gas production and coal production, because we have to save our spot at the top of the heap. We must, or the United States will crumble in the shadow of China. And that's not Alex Jones talking. That's the truth, okay? The numbers don't lie. This is where we're going unless we change course aggressively. So where are you going to invest? Either go to work and keep your head down, cancel your vacation, be Dave Ramsey for the next 10 years, or 2 years, or start dollar cost averaging in, buying a little bit as things are falling, okay? Because we can never price the exact bottom or the exact top, but you can buy in a little bit on the ride down and then DCA out once you cross into the profit zone. You start DCAing out and taking profits as the market goes back up. Now, Elon is predicting a massive bull run in 2025. All of his development, all his investments are lined up for that time. I tend to agree for now, but then again, I've been wrong. The entire market has been wrong. All the talking heads are wrong. This continues to get worse, and it will not change until the Biden administration pivots on their direction, because the Fed cannot do it alone. Either way, have fun out there. We're going to be okay. Just take it easy. Try to minimize your bills and just go to work if you still have a job. And we'll get through it. We always get through it.